Welcome to Historical Perspectives. My name is Paul Bucemi, and this is the channel where we're going to dive deep into fascinating stories that shape our world. In today's episode, we're going to explore Ukraine's aspirations to be part of Western Europe, Ukraine's desire to distance itself from Russian influence, and the negative actions taken by Russia against Ukraine. Join us as we uncover the historical, political, economic, and cultural factors behind Ukraine's desire for closer integrations with the West. Ukraine's ambitions to be a part of Western Europe can be attributed to all of the above: historical, political, economic, and cultural factors, geopolitical considerations, political autonomy, democratic values, and economic advancement are all driving forces behind Ukraine's aspirations for Western integration. One of the most significant actions taken by Russia against Ukraine in recent history is something I'm sure we're all familiar with by now, and that is the annexation of Crimea in 2014. Leading to the ongoing conflict that has now resulted in the Russian occupation of eastern regions of Ukraine. The fighting still rages on with the ongoing Ukrainian counteroffensive in the region, in the occupied regions. What are Russia's intentions towards Ukraine? Well, they're the same as they've always been. Russia has been trying to assimilate and control Ukraine for centuries. What's their strategy? It's the same strategy: repression of national identity, political suppression and prosecution, economic exploitation, Russification policies, control over political institutions. We're going to go over all of that, because all you got to do is look back at Ukraine's history and you can find significant abuses orchestrated by Russia. Russia's goals in Ukraine have been the same for centuries. During the Soviet era, Ukraine experienced the Holodomor, a man-made famine in the 1930s. And this was when Joseph Stalin was in power in the Soviet Union. His policies, the Soviet policies, included forced collectivization and confiscation of grain, resulted in the starvation and death of millions of Ukrainians. There are mass graves found in Ukraine today, unmarked mass graves. And they found about 30 of them, and they're still unearthing more. Can you imagine that? It's insane. While the famine has affected several regions in the Soviet Union, it is considered a targeted action by the Soviet government against Ukraine. Communists love mass deaths. They love destroying their farms. They love starving their people. That's something we can delve into another episode. But yeah, it's horrendous. Moreover, throughout the Soviet period, Russia implemented policies aimed at suppressing, guess what? That's right, the Ukrainian language, cultural and national identity. These policies were designed to assimilate Ukrainians into a single Soviet identity, eroding their cultural distinctiveness. Now, let's delve into the periods between 1850 and 1900. So that's the early 20th century, mid-late 19th century, where Russia's negative actions towards Ukraine are obvious. Russification policies were implemented by the Russian Empire aimed at assimilating Ukrainians and suppressing their national identity. This is an ongoing theme. Ukrainian cultural and religious institutions faced restrictions, Ukrainian language, publications were censored, and Ukrainian schools were often replaced or heavily influenced by Russian education. Land reforms implemented by Russia and Ukraine during this period resulted in significant changes to land ownership patterns. The reforms concentrated land in the hands of a few wealthy landowners, exasperating socio-economic disparities, and created an agrarian crisis for Ukrainian peasants. So, as you can see, the Ukrainians are no stranger to Russian oppression. The Russian Empire imposed mandatory conscription of Ukrainians into the Russian army. Ukrainian soldiers were subjugated to intense Russification efforts, suppressing their native language, traditions, and cultural practices, further eroding their Ukrainian identity. So at any given point in history, if you're Ukrainian under Russian rule, you have it pretty bad. You don't even have the right to exist. Furthermore, the Russian Empire maintained tight control over Ukrainian political institutions and systematically replaced Ukrainian officials with Russian bureaucrats. Ukrainian political elites faced restrictions and discrimination, limiting their influence and representation in the imperial administration. So again, this is something that's been going on for a very long time. They have not changed their strategy, the Russians that is, when it comes to their aims in Ukraine. So we can keep stepping back in time, and the same patterns are going to reveal themselves. If you study history, the Russian aggression towards the Ukrainian identity, nothing new, nothing original, okay? They've never stopped. Imperial Russia, Soviet Russia, and dare I say, fascist Russia, a term that's debatable, of course, and something we most definitely will revisit in another episode. There's so many things to go over, so many future episodes. This is just scratching the surface. So, Imperial Russia, Soviet Russia, fascist Russia, doesn't matter what you call it. At any point in the past 300 years and more, not much has changed in the narrative, in the story of Ukraine and its neighbor, Russia. So today we've explored, before we end it, obviously Ukraine is looking towards the West. Obviously. I think they are exhausted, and they've probably been exhausted for a very long time. Would you want to be connected with someone who is trying to erase you when you have another option and join a side where your culture can be exercised and enjoyed, celebrated even? Those are your choices, and of course that there's pro Russians in Ukraine. Most of them in the East. I'm sure there's some in the West. But if you were Ukrainian and you knew your history and you were living in the current situation, would you be pro-Russian? Wouldn't you want something else? So today we've explored Ukraine's aspirations for closer integration with Western Europe, its desire to distance itself from Russian influence, and the negative actions taken by Russia against Ukraine. While Ukraine's aspirations are driven by a multitude of factors, it's important to recognize the historical relationship Ukraine has with Russia. Now, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, say whatever you want, negative, positive, critique me, add information. It's awesome. Again, this is Paul Bucemi with Historical Perspectives. Until next time, this is, we're signing off. Thank you. Bye.